Bless you, baby. We continue now with our look at the baby Gregory case. Joining us in our studio this morning, Gregory and his parents, Gregory Bryant Bruce and Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce. Also with them is their attorney, John Mayhew. And joining us from Nashville, Tennessee is Dr. Ellen Clayton. She is a pediatrician and chairs the Child Abuse Committee at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Welcome to all of you. Cheryl, you're a doctor. Did you notice anything at all when Gregory was born or as he progressed and got older?
Well, Gregory showed signs of being ill right from birth. He was a little bit unusual looking, what in the medical community we call a funny looking kid right from birth as well. But at about 3 weeks of age, he had already started turning yellow, showing signs of jaundice, so we knew that there was a problem.
Was he ever diagnosed with, and what's the syndrome called again?
Alagille?
Yeah, Alagille syndrome. Was he diagnosed with that early on?
Vanderbilt called it non-syndromic Alagilles, said that he had paucity of bile ducts. So in a sense, they were in the ballpark, but didn't specifically identify the entity.
Okay, so Greg, what happened that you took him in and they came up with the allegations of child abuse?
Well, he had a minor fall from the bed at home during a diaper change, and throughout that particular night, that's the night of December 6, 1993, he didn't do well. He didn't nurse, and he was a little lethargic in the morning, not his, usual self. So we took him immediately to Fort Campbell, Blancheville Army Hospital, where he was diagnosed with having a low hematocrit, or blood volume. And immediately we took him straight to Vanderbilt, where he was seen by physicians there, and his hematocrit had fallen yet 3% more en route in less than an hour. So he was in, having a bleeding disorder. It was in progress. We didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly what was happening. He was found to have subsequently intracranial hemorrhage and retinal hemorrhage. And very soon afterwards, the Vanderbilt team suggested he was a victim of repeated severe child abuse.
Dr. Clayton, I know that, as I understand it, you were not involved personally with this case, but certainly you're up to speed on it. How was the decision made and the allegation of child abuse brought? What goes into that review process?
We are legally and ethically required to recognize and diagnose child abuse. But we recognize the seriousness of this diagnosis, and so we only make it after we have engaged in a thorough evaluation and exclusion of all the alternatives. In this case, it was all the alternatives were considered, and the diagnosis was made.
And what factors did you use in this case that caused you to think there was child abuse?
I am not at liberty to talk about the details of this case because, as you know, we are bound by the rules of confidentiality.
Are you going to appeal the Bryant Bruce's getting Gregory back?
That is a decision that is up to the Department of Human Services. Our obligation is to make the diagnosis. How Gregory's care is managed from that point on is a decision that is to be made by the Department of Human Services and not by us.
When that decision was made, Cheryl, what did you say to them? I mean, did you, certainly you must have gone into some pleading and talked to them and said that he had been diagnosed before, earlier, with liver disease.
Right. We actually paper trailed them extensively, suggesting medical alternative and suggesting that they look at his liver problem as a possible etiology for what they were seeing, and they did not consider everything because they said that he did not have a coagulopathy, and indeed at that time he did, although they discounted the labs as laboratory error. He clinically was showing signs of having a coagulopathy. He was bleeding from sites where he had been stuck 12 hours previously, and I mean, as you know, if you've ever been stuck for blood, it stops almost immediately, but 12 hours later he was still bleeding, and that's documented in their records.
As a physician, if someone brought you a child like your son, would you go through a process, though, and would you do much as Vanderbilt did and say we must look at the possibility here of child abuse?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would consider the possibility of child abuse, and I don't fault them in having made the initial call. Where I fault them is not having followed through on their obligation to fully consider the differential diagnosis thereafter and make sure that they weren't missing something, which in this case they did.
And you heard Dr. Clayton say it's a decision that they don't take lightly and go through a lot of steps. Let me ask you, John Mayhew, as their attorney, have you heard whether or not Tennessee officials plan to appeal this decision?
They've not made a decision, but it was interesting. They issued a press release in which they sort of threatened that they're going to do something, and I found that rather offensive because the consideration should be what's best for baby Gregory, not who won the case and who lost the case. And baby Gregory is now where he should be. He's in the care of his parents. He's in the care of the Eggleston people. He's in the care of his primary caretaker. So I think the threat of further litigation is somewhat hollow and offensive.
Do you have some legal intentions for the family?
Obviously, they have remedies that they're going to pursue. They're not at liberty today to say what they are, but they've been grievously wronged, and they're going to look at every possible remedy that they have.
Will it be a legal problem for you that, as I understand it, they took your son away and for 19 months, right?
Yeah.
And then you went and took him from the foster home. Will that present some problems?
Interestingly enough, it probably works in our favor because we never would have had this result if these parents hadn't had the courage to take this child and get this second opinion. And you probably know that the people in Tennessee, although they tried to prosecute, the grand jury came back and did not indict them for the kidnapping.
How's your family now? You have 2 other children, and now you have baby Gregory back with you. Are you worried that he won't stay with you, or how's your family doing?
No, I mean, he would leave over my dead body, literally. So he will not leave my house again. I'm sorry, it won't happen. Everybody's doing wonderfully. I mean, we're just now probably trying to get our feet back on the ground because we've really been on cloud 9. Gregory's doing extremely well every day developmentally. He's just like moving by leaps and bounds. He's a different child already.
Dr. Clayton, in your opinion, do you think that there's anything else that Vanderbilt University could have done, perhaps a reevaluation or a second opinion? And we're just about out of time, so you can tell us about 20 seconds.
It is our position that were we to reevaluate him, we would undertake the same thorough investigation and evaluation that we did previously, and that we would probably come to the same conclusion that we came to the first time.
All right,
but it is our policy to evaluate these cases thoroughly before we make the diagnosis.
Dr. Ellen Clayton, Vanderbilt University Medical Center, thank you so much for joining us, along with John Mayhew, the attorney for Gregory and Cheryl Bryant Bruce. Thank you so much, and baby Gregory. And we'll take a quick break here, come back with more for you right after this.